Good Thursday morning to you. Rev here this morning. It is October the 7th, 2021. I hope you're safe and well and blessed this morning. Ready to be a witness for Christ. I'm going to read from the Gospel according to St. John this morning. This is from chapter 5. I'm going to read the first 9 verses. Sounds long, but it really isn't that long. Sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for a feast of the Jews. Now there is in Jerusalem, near the sheep gate, a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie: the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, "Do you want to get well?" "Sir," the invalid said, "I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me." Then Jesus said to him, "Get up, pick up your mat, and walk." At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Stories. We all like a good story. And some are good at telling them. Others not quite so good, but we still like to hear stories. Especially the ones that just kind of keep us on the edge of our seats. There was an old country gentleman years ago by the name of Jerry Clower. He was from the rural South, and he was good at telling stories and was pretty famous at it. Jesus was a good storyteller. He told what we call parables. Parables are not necessarily true stories, but Jesus used the parables to get his point across. My story, my favorite, is in Luke 15, the story of the prodigal son. That's my story. Jesus tells us a story today, though. Jesus is at the pool of Bethesda. Now, there's a whole lot more to the story here. It's the Sabbath, and the man with the mat was stopped, and I mean, the Pharisees were always trying to discredit Jesus, but what I want to focus on here this morning here real quick is I want to focus on the mat. On the mat, it says, Jesus says, "Pick up your mat and walk." Now, why did he say it that way? Why did Jesus tell him to pick up his mat? Why did he just say, "Get up and walk"? The mat is of no consequence here. Or is it? I mean, there are other ways that Jesus could have said, talked about this man being healed. But he says, "Pick up your mat and walk." Why? Because the mat is his story. He could carry that mat with him. This man that Jesus healed, this man could carry that mat with him everywhere he went and tell his story. Tell others about what Jesus had done for him. I mean, can you just hear it? You see this mat? I used to have to lay on it day in, day out because I was crippled. I was an invalid. I couldn't do anything. But this man called Jesus came back came by and healed me. He said, "Pick up your mat and walk." And I got up and walked. I'd been there for 38 years. What a story. What a story. He would always have that mat there to remind him what Jesus had done for him. So here's a question for you. What reminders do you have? I have several things in my life. I have my guitars, which is a whole other story, but I used to use my talent against Jesus. So my guitars that I use to play are now reminders of what Christ has done for me. I have my wife and my family. If it wasn't for Christ, I would have none of that. I didn't have any interest in any of that years ago. If you'd have told me that I was going to be married, have 2 kids, and become a preacher, I'd have laughed you out of the room. But I have all that to help remind me of what Jesus has done for me. We all have a story to tell. We don't all have a Pool of Bethesda type story. We don't have Damascus Road stories, but we all have stories. Maybe you were saved at a very young age. But you know what? It took the same amount of grace to save you as it did Paul on the Damascus Road, or the man at the Pool of Bethesda. Are you saved by God's grace? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Then you have a story. And so it all comes down to this. You have a story to tell. I'm sure that God has done something in your life in addition to your salvation. So will you tell your story? People need to hear it. We are witnesses for Christ. And your best witness is your story. So go tell it. Go tell your story. I'm Pastor Mark. Love you guys. Be safe. Be well. Be blessed. Be strong. Go tell your story for Jesus to everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.